Hello, BookTube. I'm here with a video for my February reading and a TBR for March. Now, I'm starting to do these on the first day of the month if I can, and not weekly reads anymore or Friday reads, because Mark at Book Time with Elvis and for the moment anyway, are doing our Friday reads in a live on Friday. So that sort of talks about the week prior to the live. And then this one is sort of what I've done for the whole month. And then the TBR, obviously. And then there's some changes. February was a pretty good month. There was a couple of things that didn't quite go as planned. I'm recording this just past midnight on the 1st. Because I'm not going to be able to get the book done. I was hoping to get it done before midnight, and we'll get to that one, but that's not going to happen. So it's going to take me another day, possibly two, to finish that one. So I'm a bit behind for February, but let's go through. What I started out with was the usual. There's a number of series that I'm doing, and the one is Strangers and Brothers, and this was book 2 by CP. It's by CP Snow, George Passant. It was originally called Strangers and Brothers, but then when that name became the series name of 11 books, it was changed to George Passant, who's the main character in here. And this was first published in 1940. It's not this. This is the second book chronologically. It's the first book that was actually written in publication order, and I've done a whole video for it. If hopefully I can leave everything down, like links to these videos if you're interested in learning more about what I had to say for this. So I'm not going to go into any great detail for the ones that I've got videos for. But this is set in sort of 20s to it says 1925 to 1933 that this is set, and it's told in the first person by Lewis Eliot, he's becoming a barrister, and in his struggles for that. But George Passant, the title character, is a solicitor in a provincial town, unnamed, small town. Well, smallish town. Fair size, actually. And he also teaches a law course or two at the local college. Now, he is sort of unconventional in the sense that he thinks young people should have a place to sort of gather and discuss things and be free of society and the pressures of all this type of thing. So he's become a mentor to people, and he helps them out financially as well. And Lewis becomes one of his sort of disciples early on before he sort of moves on. And there's a number of them, and students come and go. And the town people look down on this a little bit because they think there's funny things going on there. But it comes out that George Passant and one of his other friends, or three of them together, get into a business, but then there's the investors lose money, and there's accusations of fraud. So a lot of it has to do, part of it has to do is looking into looking into his life, details into his life, like through Lewis Eliot, who's actually going to defend them in court, and so we peel back the layers of George Passant, and also the town, where they really think that he's doing immoral things with this group and has done. So yeah, it's that kind of thing of small town minds and somebody else who wants to help people, but there's also the complex characters, let's put it that way, because he's not just that. He's a bit of a megalomaniac. He does take advantage of the situation with women occasionally. But anyway, yeah, it's a series that I've read many times, and I enjoy it. So I'm reading them in chronological order this time. The next one is another series that I've not read fully. It's in conjunction sort of with this, is Anthony Pole's Dance to the Music of Time. And this is the second book, is A Buyer's Market. And it's set in the 20s as well, late 20s this time. And it's about Jenkins, Nicholas Jenkins, who is, the first book had him in school, and then he was sort of, in university a little bit. Now he's out in the real world, living in London, and recurring characters come back, like Windmerpool, who's sort of an intellectual snob, and anything cultural. He wants to become a solicitor. Jenkins wants to be a writer, but he's currently working for a publisher, and they meet up and they meet some old friends, and they get into sort of society, and there's more depth into the character. We get to see other friends, where they are at this point in their lives, and a lot of aimless talking in many ways. But again, there's another video for this. But and there's time, like I enjoyed it to a certain extent. There's times that it bores me to tears, but then occasionally there's just fabulous descriptive writing. So yeah, so I'm hoping it continues like this. There's 4 omnibuses, and there's 3 books in each. There's 12, and I've only read the first 3 books. So the next one. Well, we'll get to that later, because we'll be talking about that. And then also I'm reading there's a group of us, but it was headed up by Faith at Faith and Books, and Mark Richardson Reads is reading through in chronological order Hornblower saga. And this one was Lieutenant Hornblower. And that was written, it might have been the 7th book written, but the second chronologically, published in 1952. And I really enjoyed this one. I'd read this one before, and it's told through the eyes of a new character, another lieutenant, Lieutenant Bush, and he becomes friends with Hornblower, and it's Hornblower is established now as a junior lieutenant on a ship, the Renown, and Bush comes on, and they've got an insane captain, a paranoid insane captain who treats abominably the officers, but allows the crew to sort of not be punished, and he thinks there's mutiny everywhere. And the captain has an accident, or potentially an accident. There's always the question of there's a thing of was it an accident? Did Hornblower help with that? Hornblower is just straight faced and not a peep out of him. And the captain is sort of relieved of duty because of this. He's a very bad head injury, and he's going more doolally. So there's secret orders that send them to sort of Haiti, Dominican Republic, to try to stop these forts from and privateers that are for the shipping in the war. This is war with France at this point, and it's like 1801-ish, late 1801. And so with the help of Hornblower, who he's really good at sort of figuring things out, and suggesting something, but in such a way that everybody thinks, yeah, that's a good idea, but not that he's proposing it as with him puffing up his chest and say, yeah, it's me that's doing this. But he takes the fort with the help of other Marines, and they capture everybody there, and they take away prizes of some ships, and they also take away a lot of prisoners. But there is not a mutiny, but a revolt of the prisoners on the Renown, the main ship. The captain gets killed. Bush gets quite badly wounded. The first lieutenant is disgraced, but not because of his fault. He was surprised in his cabin and tied up, and he wasn't hurt and he wasn't killed, and it's embarrassing. But anyway, Hornblower, they get to Jamaica. There's an inquest, but everything seems to be fine with that, and Hornblower gets promoted to commander, which is just under captain, and he's sent back to England. He's going to carry documents back and forth, but by the time he gets to England, the Treaty of Amiens is signed, and that's the end of the war. So, and his commission was not sort of ratified, and so he's on half pay. Bush, and 90% of the Navy is sort of decommissioned, and so Bush is just living with his sisters. Comes into London occasionally, meets up with Hornblower. Hornblower's playing a gambling house whist because he's really good at mathematical and sort of guessing of things that are going on, and then near the end, war starts out again because Napoleon is he's on his way to be emperor, and he's become consul, so war is starting again. That's where we ended it. Let's see here. And another series is the Rougon-Macquart Series. His Excellency Eugene Rougon. This was published in 18. I think it was 18. I want to say 1872. I think it might have been in 1872. But it's a series of 20 books that Emile Zola wrote, and it's a bit of a sort of a history of the Second Empire period from 1550 to 1871. And this is the second chronologically, not publication order. I'm reading them chronologically, and this is it's about two families, the Rougons and the Macquarts, that are sort of they had different fathers, and they're moving on, and this is the grandson, Eugene, and he's in government, and it's a very political book, machinations, Machiavellian in many ways. Well, that's an overused term, but anyway, it's people manipulating others and him manipulating others, and there's a woman in there. There's a lot of eroticism in this, and stuff that's kind of surprising in some ways, and very, very, very modern. Anyway, I think I'm going. Yeah, I better speed up here. But yeah, there's a video on that. And then for Market Book Time with Elvis, I'm reading sort of. Well, he wanted to read French books this year, so January was Les Miserables, and February was Candide. This is Candide and Other Stories, but I read Candide. I just love it. It's very bizarre. It's about a young man who's basically an orphan, but he gets kicked out of a castle. Many adventures, being in prison, tortured by the Inquisition. He's fallen in love with a woman that was at the castle, the daughter, but he thinks she's dead, and it's back and forth. But nobody actually really dies in here. Well, some do, but I mean the main characters. It's very short. It's like 88 pages. I have not read the other ones yet in here. it's something, because it's not, wasn't part of the thing for us to read, but I will probably go through these eventually. I didn't get around this month to reading them. So let's put these in a pile here properly. And the last series is the Sacketts that Mark Richardson is doing, and this is the second one chronologically again, published in 1970, 76. It's one of the longer ones. There's two long ones, and this is it's basically 1602 up to maybe about 16 teens 20, and it's we're following Barnabas Sackett again, who was in the first book. He's in England at this point, and then he goes and he gets married in the New World, adventures there, has children, and it goes through his life. And it's very adventurous. Lots of things happen, like every single time. And he's the best at everything. He's the best fighter. He's the best horse rider. He's the best swordsman. He shoots the guns best. He's the best sailor. Everything. So he's perfect in many ways. And for my second childhood book quest, that are reading children's books, and this was the second one, and it's Where the Red Ferns Grow, where the red fern grows. It was a little out of the age range that I did for the first section here, but it was published in 1961. I've done a video for it. It's about a boy and hunting dogs. I liked the writing. I really liked the writing and the setting, but I didn't like sort of the story in some ways, because it's basically you're manipulated as the reader to feel bad about the dogs, but every other animal in there, you're not supposed to feel bad about them at all. That they're and this is, I know how this was the way it was, but it's a bit of a manipulation that you're not supposed to feel bad about the other animals. So didn't really care for it too much. And for my Patreon book club, I read Black Narcissus by Rumer Godden, and this was the basis for the Powell and Pressburger film with Deborah Carr, and this was published in 1939. And it's about nuns who go up into the Himalayas and take over an abandoned palace. It's sort of abandoned, but there were monks there before, and they abandoned it. And they take over. They're going to have a hospital and teach the locals, but they're not prepared for this kind of thing. And the one that's in charge, she's young, inexperienced. And because of a lot of things, it's kind of weird at sort of what happens, how they sort of almost lose their faith and start thinking of other things and doing other things and not sort of following their faith. And there's some interesting characters. There's a local character called Dean who has a bad reputation. He drinks, but in some ways he's good, but he pulls up the nuns on when they don't do their sort of their religious duty. He points it out to them and they don't like it. But I enjoyed it. I really, really liked it. And I'd like to watch the film again. And I like the way she wrote. It's strange. It's one of the members said it was like it sort of like leaves you a bit cold, like the setting. But yeah, I enjoyed that. And for Will Shawn Like It, Brandy at the Booklectic chose this one for me. It's a bit older than I sort of wanted, because for that it should be like published no earlier than January 2022. But this is a YA, young adult, and Dressed in Blood by Kendare Blake, and it's a ghost story. It's about a young man who's 17, adolescent, and he's got it seems to be through the family, like he's a ghost hunter. And he goes and dispatches ghosts. He kills the ghosts so they can move on. And they move around, him and his mother, who's a witch, and they move to Thunder Bay, Ontario, where there's this young woman who was brutally murdered at some point, and her white dress was just covered with blood. Hence the name. And in the 50s, and many people had disappeared there, and he somewhat gets to the bottom of it, and I really enjoyed it. I was really surprised that I did, and I want to read the sequel to it as well. But yeah, that was enjoyable. That was written in 2000. Okay, and for Roger's Cheapo Book Club at the Vaughan Manor, and with his cohort Michael K. Vaughan, the first pick was The Prisoner of Zenda, published 1894. And is that right? Sorry, I'm just checking here to see. I might have. Yeah, 1894. It's a swashbuckling thing. It's adventure, very, very small, a fake kingdom in Europe, the Ruritania, and there's a young man, Rudolph Rasendil, who actually, he looks like the king, or the prince who's going to be the king, and the king gets sidetracked, and so he steps in, and it's the brother of the king who wants to put a kibosh on the coronation. So Rupert Rasendale steps in and pretends to be the king, and frees, in fights and frees, and there's a lot of frees the king, and and he's done a good deed. But the thing is, he goes back home, and his whole family and everybody thinks he's a layabout. So very enjoyable, very enjoyable. And another that I read, but the video won't be up till tomorrow, is for Will Shawn Like... No, sorry. This is Second Childhood Book Quest. Again, this was Brandy's pick, the Book Eclectic, and it's four friends, and there's a bet to eat fried worms, and it goes through their trials with that, and arguments and fights, and and so I've got a video up that's going up tomorrow. I enjoyed this as well. It was a fun read. There was a very funny bits in it, but there's some other things about it, and I think there's the other one that I did read. I read this again with Mark at Book Time with Elvis. Is a novel of the centuries. It's The Extraordinary Adventure of Les Miserables by David Bellos, and this was published in 2007. It's basically a biography of Les Miserables, with a little biographical stuff about Victor Hugo, and amazingly good. The research that's done in here, and like a lot of little tidbits of how it's translated, the pitfalls of translation, how Hugo wrote it, where he wrote it, and like the massive manuscript and how it was published, the reception of it, and then the translations. But it's just all the stuff that went into it. And it's one of my... Les Miserables is got to be up there in the 5 top favorite books of mine. So this was just amazingly good, and I think Mark and I should be doing a video about Les Miserables and talking about this as well at some point. And there's 2 other things that there was 3. I was supposed to read Paradise Lost. That got with a buddy read, but that got put aside. And I started reading with Mark the complete letters of the younger Pliny for Historathon. I didn't get too far into it. I'm really only on book 2, so I'm hoping I can continue this and finish it this month. Fingers crossed. Another one I started, but this was not really, and it's just because I had some slowdowns, was the first translation of The Three Musketeers, and this was a buddy read, but I didn't get very far, and I only got 172 pages of 600 and some. I'm not sure when I can get around to this. This was very low priority, hence it was put aside when I was starting to get things behind. And the one that again, it was something else that Mark and I read, French literature. I suggested Lost Illusions and reading that, and I should be done it now, but I'm getting there. I'm getting there. I should be done in the next day or two. So yeah, so that's a lot of reading for February now, and I got tons of stuff coming up for March as well. It's March of the Mammoths. March Mystery Madness. Part of the March of the Mammoths and March Mystery Madness is I'm going to reread with Mark. And if anybody else wants to join us, because I think he's got a couple of subscribers, or at least one that's interested in doing this, we're going to start a Voxer group. And it's the Mysteries of Paris that was serialized in a newspaper in the 1840s, I think it was. 150 episodes. It doesn't say, but I think it was in the 1840s. And it's sort of, there's a lot of sort of basis in some ways to Les Miserables and even Count of Monte Cristo that's in here. So we're going to read this as the Mammoth because it's almost 1,400 pages. What is it actually? No, it's only 1,350. That's all. Well, there's an introduction, so yeah, so it'll be almost 1,400 pages. So that's quite a bit. And then another buddy read with Alan at Big Hard Books and Classics, and Greg at another Bibliophile Reads is William Gaddis's The Recognitions. This was published in 1955, and it runs in about 950 pages. I've not read anything by him, and I'm looking forward to this a lot. The third book in the Eugene... No, that's not the third book. Sorry, because I put it up on the wrong pile here. The third book of the Rougon-Macquart series is The Kill. It's a bit slimmer, so that'll be fine. Yeah, I'm gonna move some stuff up here so I can put them back up there. Now, this is for will Shawn like it? For this month, one of my subscribers, Freeman, sent it to me. It's Don Winslow's City on Fire. So I'm actually looking forward to this. It looks quite interesting. It's like a thriller, crime type thing. So we'll see. And continuing on with the Sacketts saga is The Warrior's Path. They'll be doing that. It's thankfully a little slimmer, so I can get through that quick. And the third in the Strangers and Brothers, The Conscience of the Rich. Sorry, I'm just running through these quickly. And the Hornblower saga, Hornblower and the Hotspur, still in this omnibus. The third in the Acceptance World, The Dance to the Music of Time, the Acceptance World. And for Vin at Revenant Reads' Gothic Novel Book Club. I'm sort of jumped in on that. I'm really late to the party, but it's things that I do want to reread. So I figured it's a good excuse. And this is James Hogg's The Private Memoirs of and Confessions of a Justified Sinner. So that'll be fun to reread. That's that. And for Literary Carey's Black Hearts Book Club, I'm sort of the co-host this month, and we'll be reading The Maltese Falcon. And this is a multiple reread for me, and it's I really really enjoy it. And also, I'm going to read another book that's about the film that I haven't read yet, and this is Maltese Falcon, John Huston director. It's got the script and it's got some essays about the film. Also, I'm hoping to get a book that's sort of a biography of Maltese Falcon. So hopefully that'll happen. And there's also my Patreon book club pick that hasn't even been done yet. So that'll be reading, and a potential buddy reading. It hasn't been fully confirmed yet or when during the month, but it's Moby Dick. It'll be a reread for me. So, but this, I'm not announcing it, and I'm not saying who's doing it because I'm not 100% sure if it's going to go ahead at this point. And you know what? I think that's it. That's a lot. So thank you if you've spent this long here. There might be something else, or I might jettison something, but we'll see. Thank you very much, BookTube.